We're talking about a city that is 4.6 miles in size and was literally swallowed whole by Atlanta. Decatur had the option to become terminus before the city of Atlanta did, or the terminating point of railroads. Apparently, Decatur didn't want that. It is one of the few places where I argue you could live without a car.
You can walk to dinner. You can see your kid's teacher at the farmer's market. You might be able to bump into 3 neighbors along your nightly walk. People are very active. My favorite festival in all of Atlanta would be Oakhurst Porch Fest. 200 plus shows on porches, and it's just block party. They close down the streets. It's really fun.
Gravestones with birth dates in the 1700s.
Beautiful.
It's a really historic place.
It's a beautiful place to walk to.
Yeah, there's so much history. I can't say enough good things about Decatur.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of ATL, All Things Local. I am Adam Mincey, a local real estate agent and consultant here in Atlanta, and I am co-hosted here with Jeff Goddard, a local lender. We have an interesting neighborhood. It's a city here in Atlanta area. It's its own city, so it's technically not Atlanta. But Jeff, which neighborhood/city are we discussing today?
We're talking about a city that is 4.6 miles in size and was literally swallowed whole by Atlanta.
Wow.
And it's on the east side of town. It's called Decatur. And most people that know anything about the history of Decatur will hear that Decatur had the option to become terminus before the city of Atlanta did, or the terminating point of railroads. Apparently, Decatur didn't want that. Decatur had only been formed a few years earlier in the 1820s, 1823, and the railroads started showing up around the 1840s. So I guess there was already enough of a sense of community. That's at least what I've been able to gather, that the people wanted to keep that and not drastically alter what was there, which is kind of interesting when you look at some of the things happening in modern times with the city of Decatur and development and the fact that Atlanta basically grew around it in a lot of ways. Greater Atlanta did. It was named after Stephen Decatur, who was a war hero in the War of 1812. So this would be kind of like modern day if somebody was a hero in the wars against terror, maybe in Afghanistan or something, or Iraq #2 or whatever. That's kind of the timeline, I guess, of when people were honoring folks. And Stephen Decatur was a naval officer, war hero, which is weird because Decatur is kind of in the middle of nowhere before the railroads were there, and even the closest river, the Chattahoochee, isn't that close in 1800 standards.
So that's interesting. So why did the settlers choose to settle in Decatur, and kind of what are the older buildings there?
You know, the reason why they chose to settle there, I'm not exactly sure. However, the beginnings of Decatur, you have to think back to when Georgia was being formed into what we think of today with counties. The Georgia General Assembly said, hey, we're going to have DeKalb County, and we need a county seat, and people seem to be congregating here, and let's make Decatur the county seat, and it kind of started that way. But a lot of Irish and Scottish immigrants were part of those early populations in Decatur, which kind of makes me think about things like the Scottish Rite Hospital that you can still see. The building designed by Neil Reed is still in Oakhurst, across from the fire station on Hill Street. Really interesting spot. And what happened with that, like a lot of other things, was when Atlanta started to change and shift, it had an impact on Decatur. That's a lot of its history is how it's been impacted by all the stuff around it. Ultimately, the railroad line did go through Decatur to terminus or Atlanta, and that had a big impact. For example, those railroad lines still run today, and they go through Decatur, and we've got major thoroughfares that run along those railroad tracks, and it was an easy, obvious place to put in MARTA train lines, which Atlanta has really crappy public transportation, but Decatur is actually pretty good compared to other parts of the city with access to public transportation. But
yeah, that's a really good point. And I see on here that you've got Claire's Mountain on your notes. What is that?
That is an urban legend. Might be true, might not be true, but Claremont is a major road in Decatur.
Mm-hmm.
Claremont and Ponce is where you asked about old buildings. That's where the old Decatur courthouse is.
Okay.
As well as the new Decatur courthouse is there, but it can accommodate a lot more crimes. I don't know, trials, whatever happened in the courthouse. But that was Claremont Road. My grandmother lived in the city of Decatur, and she would tell stories about a woman named Claire. People thought she lived on a mountain. I think the mountain was really the hill where the VA hospital sits. It is a pretty big hill.
So like Toco Hill.
Waterworks was, Toco Hill, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Was Claire's Mountain. Now, that still doesn't explain why Claremont changes its spelling when it crosses Scott Boulevard, but that's another topic of discussion. Yes. So, yeah, there's a little bit there. It was a crossroads in terms of people moving around. We had Stone Mountain to the east. That's a really noticeable, geological feature. I'm sure there was movement between there and the city of Atlanta as that developed. So I think Decatur had, before interstates and all of that, the railroad going through there, because there weren't like navigable waterways. The railroad was the interstate of the time, and they were positioned right on it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point, because when you think about these railroads, and we are terminus here in Atlanta, so we are often reminded of our railroad, they're oftentimes put on continental divides. And one thing you have to think about is that railroad line that runs directly into Decatur is the eastern subcontinental divide, and it's the high land, right? So one side of the railroad would technically flow to the Atlantic Ocean, and the other side would flow to the Gulf of Mexico.
We should go test that.
Yes, we can test that at one point. But really, it is also a neighborhood divide here in Atlanta, and Decatur is naturally broken into 10 different neighborhoods, and they're both on either side of that as well. Now, there is a highland and a lowland when you're considering that continental divide, and segregation of white and black neighborhoods have also been purposefully put on a highland and a lowland side of that. So if you're on the northeast side here in Atlanta, you're going to be on the higher land, which would have been historically white neighborhoods. And if you're on the southwest side of that, you would be historically black neighborhoods, which would be lower lots, lower land on that side.
Well, I think in general, north of the track, south of one side of the track, the other side of the track. I think the reason why the tracks are always such a dividing line is it's hard to walk across or drive across. It's very restricted access to cross a locomotive line. So, and in Atlanta, we had a lot of segregation, and that's something that we still can see historic elements of today.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
But the city of Decatur is both north and south of the tracks.
Yes, it is. It is. And that is and it's important to know that that's the incorporated Decatur we're talking about, because Decatur has a wide span. Today we're going to be talking about the zip code 30030. There is also 30032, 33, 34. Yeah. And so some of those imply North Decatur, which are going to be Emory, I think CDC area.
I grew up in 30033, and one road over was Tucker.
Yeah.
And my address said Decatur, but I never referred to myself as living in Decatur, because people would have thought I meant the city of.
And that's a really good point, because I live in 30033. And I am 10 houses away from being in the city of Decatur. So that span goes from Tucker to the city of Decatur. And it's important to note, too, because you also have some neighborhoods that are 30030 that are not city of Decatur.
It's a common misconception that if you see 30030 that you're in the city of, you'll have the city of Decatur schools and all of the services. I don't know. I would assume some people have been burned by that, buying a piece of real estate without actually knowing. That would be really That would be really sad. I mean, they would save a lot of money on their taxes, but they wouldn't have access to the schools.
Yes, that is true. And I will do a deep. That's why you hire a professional to help you buy property, and that's why you call people like Jeff and I who know these nuances of our city.
Make sure you're in the greater Decatur,
if you want to be.
Yeah,
or if you
or the incorporated Decatur,
unincorporated if you want to be as well.
But
so
it is interesting that there's so many addresses, and the vast majority of areas with a Decatur address are not incorporated Decatur.
That's true.
Unincorporated Decatur goes way south of I-20 and all the way up, like I said, to Tucker. It's a big area.
Yeah, but it's important to note, especially for listeners who are trying to get a better read on our city. If you're moving here, we know you like to start on Zillow, and you may see City of Decatur, and you're like, wow, I can get this huge house for much cheaper. Well, I always tell people there's no real deal in real estate. And that house that you're looking at is probably not in incorporated Decatur, and the schools might be quite different than what you're looking for.
And the schools are very sought after in the city of Decatur.
Yeah, some of the most sought after schools in the state. And we'll get there and talk about that in just a second.
What can you tell us kind of about the culture of living in not greater Decatur, but the city of Decatur?
Sure. Well, downtown Decatur, Decatur where it's greater, it's got this air about it for sure. Downtown Decatur, also referred to as the square, right? So if you're going to be there, you're going to
the heart of downtown.
The heart of downtown. If you're downtown shopping,
and they have a little bypass commerce, kind of like a little mini 285 going around that central part.
They certainly do, and it's a rare place. You can walk to dinner. You can see your kid's teacher at the farmer's market. You might be able to bump into 3 neighbors along your nightly walk. People are very active.
Well, one point of contention that I'll mention is that it's so expensive to live in Decatur that a lot of the teachers or firefighters or police officers can't afford to live there. And that housing affordability is a really important part of what Decatur has. A lot of public housing.
Yes.
Like they are really trying to address some of those inequalities and issues.
Yeah. And when you say culture, I think that brings me to my next point is it is a very progressive left-leaning area. It's a city that wants to be what it stands for politically. And
it wants to be a tight-knit community.
It does.
It doesn't want all the neighbors to be their own little walled-off garden and nobody interact.
It wants self-sustainability, so much so that you can't even buy trash bags from Glad.
That's right.
And expect to have them picked up. You have to pay depending on how much trash you actually discard out of your home, depends on how much your bill will be.
And the local stores carry Decatur City trash bags.
That's right. You have to buy.
How you pay for sanitation.
That's how you pay for sanitation, by how many bags you buy. And so
I kind of like that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I want it to still be affordable, but at least it varies based on who's throwing out the most stuff.
They put you at the forefront of you're to blame for the amount of trash you have. and that's what we mean by progressive. It's also a very sought after school district. It's got a lot of civic engagement. And like we said, progressive civic engagement. They want to have that missing middle, is what they call it, the missing middle, back into their economy, because people have moved there in massive amounts, so much so that they've expanded greatly over the last 10 years. And so, it's a highly sought after area. I will say its location is a little closed off. Tell me a little bit. I mean, you grew up there. Obviously, my 2 cents are that it's
location. I think is interesting because it does maybe feel a little closed off. However, you can get to I-85 from the north side of the city of Decatur in under 10 minutes. You can get to I-20 from the south side of the city of Decatur in maybe 5 minutes down Candler Road, and maybe another 10 minutes east, 15 minutes to 285. So it's centrally located, but there's not a highway running right next to it.
Yeah, and I think
through it.
And I think, again, that is really what we mean about the nuances and why you need a professional to help you if you're planning on moving here is because if you are going to commute to Midtown, you don't want to live on the east side of Decatur because you have to get through all of the traffic in the morning.
Mhm.
You have to, and then where are you going? You're going down Ponce? That's going to suck, down
Mhm.
Scott Boulevard. If you want
And getting
and need
downtown is
to,
relatively easy.
if you live on the west side,
Mhm.
or else you're going to take North Decatur and you got to go through Emory, you got to go through all of that traffic. And as someone who lives on the northeast side, I'll say it is not convenient to get to 20 at all. So if you're working in town, if you're working in Midtown, you might want to consider being on that southwest side of Decatur
Mhm.
to quickly help, or you're going to be in stop and go traffic, red lights, stop signs, roundabouts, the
I
whole
think
nine.
that brings up something that I think is really unique about the city of Decatur. It is one of the few places where I argue you could live without a car in downtown because you can get to the airport and to downtown Atlanta just by hopping on the train, direct access. Um, it's also interesting that the big MARTA proposals that are going on right now are trying to address some of that crosstown traffic issue of getting to Decatur, which is right next to Emory and CDC and all of that, and connecting it to Midtown, Buckhead, Lindenberg kind of area. And those crosstown routes are really crappy
Yeah.
in a car.
Yeah.
So it's not just a secret that it's difficult to get in and out. There's money being put behind solving that problem.
And there has been ideas for a long time. I-485 was a highway that was designated to be put in place, and intimate or eminent domain had taken properties from people, and it still didn't go through. Right.
Mhm.
So we're talking about this has been an ongoing problem since the 70s, 80s. Right.
Mhm.
And so I will say, yes, commute plans for Decatur are great when you're in Decatur, and they're making them better. Like we said, there's Decatur 2.0 that they're currently working on, more crosswalks in between blocks. We're talking about more bike lanes, more dedicated space to be able to move as an independent body rather than needing transportation. And then,
Well, it's probably also important to point out that not everybody is trying to get from Decatur somewhere else. There are a lot of things that draw people from other communities to get to work in the city of Decatur.
yeah,
Whether it's healthcare, government buildings, it's the county seat of DeKalb, big county. There are a lot of services there, restaurants,
there's a lot of small
entertainment.
business there.
Mhm. And a lot of people that live maybe in Stone Mountain that feel like getting to Decatur is not a terrible commute compared to getting to downtown.
Yeah, and I guess that we could wrap up the culture, segment with that is that it does almost have a small town, self-sustainable feeling to it, and it really feels like you could be in that town and never really need to leave.
Mhm.
If you imagine I always think about the small towns in Maine,
Mhm.
and how they're self-sufficient. And you go down to the local grocery store, you go down to the market or whatever. That is the way that Decatur wants to be, and that's the way Decatur feels. But it is a little bit bigger. But let's talk about schools.
I hate schools.
I always
So boring.
I always hated schools too,
I'm just kidding. Schools
and
are important,
schools are very important. But
especially for real estate.
especially for real estate. If you're looking to make a very good sound investment, you buy in a good school district. Luckily, today's neighborhood and city that we're talking about has very good school districts.
School districts come and go, though, too.
They sometimes do, but I think before we dive in, let's lay out. It's a little confusing.
Mhm.
I didn't go to school like this.
Decatur City schools are unique.
They are. So they have early childhood education, not mandatory, but you can do that. And then they have K through 2, right? So they kindergarten through second grade. You've got a total of 5 schools that you could attend through that: Claremont, Glenwood, Oakhurst, Westchester, Winona Park. Then you have 2 upper elementary schools. And this is where you would go if you were from 3rd to 5th grade. And so this is going to be 5th Avenue Upper Elementary, and then Talley Street, which is a relatively newer school.
Hmm.
And then after that, you go to middle school. There is only one middle school. It's Beacon Hill.
Well, Tally Street is over near closer to Avondale Estates.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one off of near Legacy Park.
So, are there any other communities that break up the grades quite that much that you're aware of?
I mean, not in the city of Atlanta, I don't believe. And
When I was going to DeKalb County schools, it was elementary through K through 7, high school sub-freshman through 12th. And only in the 90s did that really turn into having a middle school.
right.
And so, but I feel like Decatur has taken this, let's segment kids to be around kids of their age, like to an extreme. And it seems to be working. But at the same time, I'm wondering if some of the conflict about what schools they want to close and build and all of that has to do with the fact that instead of all the children living in this pocket of Decatur, now they need to get across the tracks or close to Avondale Estates to hit the school that's for their age group. But it would only be for a couple of years, for example. So there is maybe it all comes out in the wash.
Maybe, but I think the kind of beautiful thing that's lost a little bit is the kids oftentimes do walk to school, especially
It is a very walkable town.
Yeah, and they've got like
And even
pathways
across the tracks, and there's the tunnel under the tracks near Agnes Scott.
but there's also paths like in people's backyards. Yeah, I mean, if you go through Oakhurst and come up through Winona Park, there's those little
Like legitimate paths, not just the ones we used to do without asking permission.
Yeah, well, they've been walked, and some of them are still the ones you ask without permission. They've just been walked so many times that there's just so many little offshoots that it would be fun to be able to see a map of that. And if you have one, we would love to see it. So, yes, like you said, there's also some hints at closing some schools, and some have been closed in the past and reopened even, that being Westchester, right? And
yeah, the Westchester thing happened maybe in the early 2000s. It was closed, and then a couple years after all the people in that neighborhood were done being upset about it and not crying over spilled milk, then it opened back up. And I think that's part of what this city is dealing with. It's like it can make a lot of sense right now, but it's such a sought after place. A lot of people are moving in, and it changes the demand for these different public services.
Right.
And it's hard to navigate that.
For sure.
I think now we're seeing, the city issuing bonds to build a new early childhood learning center, I believe, and that's a big debate within city leaders right now and the public weighing in. So I think while the schools are a huge selling point, they are also a big point of contention. Because they are such a big deal, there's so much money and energy behind them. It's any kind of change is going to be met with a lot of interest from all sides.
Yes, I would agree. And there are other factors that are important to note. Decatur City Schools right now have a ratio of around 12 students to one teacher.
That's really low.
It's very low compared to what you see across the city. But you can also, if you don't have the money to buy into the city of Decatur, 30030, there are tuition options
Really?
to go to elementary school there.
Really interesting way to deal with some of those fluctuations in population. And you could adjust how many people you let in, make sure you're covering your costs. I think that's pretty interesting. I didn't know about that.
There's also a really good school called the Museum School that is in Forest Hills neighborhood that is right outside of the city of Decatur. So if you're on the south side, Avondale area, that is a good school as well. And then, like we said, Midway Woods, part of that neighborhood does go to City of Decatur schools, but part of it does not. And then typically the rule of thumb is if you're on the North Decatur side, you would be unincorporated, but you would still have better schools, but not as good as City of Decatur. And then if you're on the south side, you wouldn't have as good of schools as North Decatur.
Mhm.
And those neighborhoods that are in North Decatur would be like Medlock Park, like the neighborhood I live in, or Oak Grove. And those are more of your CDC, Emory folks that would naturally gravitate towards that. Speaking of neighborhoods, so there are 10 neighborhoods that make up Decatur. Those neighborhoods are, well, downtown Decatur actually
Mhm.
being a neighborhood. You would have Lenox Place, Westchester, which Chelsea Heights is a slash name for that.
Mhm.
Great Lakes, Glenwood Estates, Sycamore Ridge, um, Oakhurst, College Heights. We said Winona Park. Did I already say College Heights? I think I might have said that twice.
Mhm.
And then Mac District. Let's talk about Mac for a
Yeah,
minute.
the Mac district. I
MAK.
thought it had been around McDonough, Adams, Kings Highway, the three north-south streets that kind of
Mhm.
define its place. I assumed that historic district had been around longer than I've been around, for example. But from what I understand, that was only designated maybe in the 90s, relatively recently. I was talking to a longtime Decatur resident who had family members involved in developing, getting that registered as a historic district. And his point was the whole reason that the community was trying to get the historic designation was to inhibit Agnes Scott College from building more parking decks.
Hmm.
Whether that's the whole reason or even true, I think is up for debate, but that's something I heard on the street, and I could see maybe why. There is a large parking deck right there next to Agnes Scott, and Agnes Scott needs parking. So it seems like there could be a real tension between the community and the school.
It's so funny that we talk about so many schools and we did not mention the college that's in the city of Decatur, that being Agnes Scott.
Yeah, that's a really important part of the town. It's directly across the tracks in downtown. You can essentially feel like you're walking from Decatur High School just to the next campus over, which is Agnes Scott. It just feels perfect. Now, Agnes Scott is not a public institution. You have to pay to go there,
That's right.
but it feels like Decatur. It has it matches the culture of Decatur. My niece recently started there. I got to visit when she moved in and all those kind of things, and I got a sense of some of that culture, and it does feel like it's cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even though it's a private institution. And uh, Georgia Tech guys, when I think maybe Tech was called North Avenue Trade School.
Yeah. I remember when I was moving to Decatur, there's some like riddle or something that my mom told me about Georgia Tech guys dating.
Well, they would always come on Friday afternoon in their cars in the little round driveway and wait for their dates.
Oh,
So there was some kind of historic kind of connection between Georgia Tech and Agnes Scott. I don't know if you go there on Friday afternoon now, if you'll see a bunch of guys.
I wonder if that's where the term "the rambling wreck" came from. Is somebody who had like a crappy car they would drive up
and
to
the
Agnes Scott and then
ladies
nickname.
decided to give
Yeah.
them a hard time about it.
Well, speaking of Agnes Scott and speaking of the Historic District, there is a very famous female architect, Leela Ross Wilburn.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about her.
I think the main thing to know about her is that people love her architecture. She did a lot. But the main thing is that she is a famous architect from a time when women were not known for their professional accomplishments.
That's right. Yeah, very early adopted architect and she really sought after affordability for the common person. So people that could not have or pay for an architect to do their plans. She created many books of plans and that were available. Southern Bungalows, one of the popular ones, and it's funny as you look through that book, you can see these houses that are in Mac District or in Oakhurst, or it's like I look at some of these homes, I'm like, I swear I've shown that house before, but I didn't really put two and two together. So she had kind of gone through and allowed, put out these plans that you could pick up. I think it was off Peter Street, which is downtown in Castleberry Hill,
Mhm.
and that's where you would go and get the plans. And it advertised Randall Brothers Builders Supply, which is still around today, in the back of these books. And it was almost like you just selected your plans, you went down there and you picked them up. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there was a charge for it, but it was more affordable than hiring an actual architect to do a custom plan because she had built these books that had so many different plans in them. So a really cool design and concept that she was able to popularize, kind of the spec build, if you will, for these 1920s craftsmen's and arts and crafts homes.
It's kinda interesting, you reminded me of this. I previously had looked into the history of Oakhurst. Oakhurst was I mean, the city of Decatur didn't always look like it does now. Oakhurst was actually annexed into the city in 1914 or 1915, which is interestingly right about the time Neil Reed designed the Scottish Rite Hospital, and
Hmm.
that kind of investment was put in. I don't know if those two were related, like, because of the annexation and the hospital was put there or vice versa. But the early 1900s were another really interesting time for the city in terms of growing, having, businesses or hospitals, services, all of that, and growing its footprint. And then, of course, you have a lot of these historic bungalow type homes that are typically in the 1920s.
Mhm.
And so I would love to go back to that time and just see how Decatur was developing then.
Yeah, and I mean, Decatur is greater, so they obviously saw Neil Reed and Leila Wilburn over here doing great things, so they obviously wanted to become part of that.
Well, I think it's important for people to know that Decatur was not always greater. When I was a kid, my family went to church in downtown Decatur. We were there at least twice a week. Um, I did not like sitting and listening to people talk about religion. So usually me and my friends would sneak out and go run around Decatur. So I felt like I got a pretty good gauge for what it was like. I was trying for this podcast, I was trying to think about what restaurants we used to eat at. In the 70s and 80s, there wasn't anything. Decatur was courthouse, some random businesses that didn't seem to make sense, like a RV shop there on Ponce near the post office. But you had the courthouse, you had the mega post office, you had all these things that kept Decatur going, but it hadn't really been invested in to turn into this community that people are drawn to now. And that was only a few decades ago.
Right.
And we've seen a really massive transformation in the early part of the 21st century, kind of similar to the early part of the 20th century that we were just referencing. So there's been a huge transformation of Decatur as a place to live in a community over the last few decades.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think as you look through history, you see the suburban sprawl happening during those same time periods that
Mhm.
you're talking about, and disinvestment within the city, across the city, and then areas like Alpharetta and Milton and those sort of neighborhoods coming alive and
I think
expanding.
in the 90s, it really felt like people started they had expanded out in Atlanta to an extent. I mean, the expansion kept going, but it felt like the huge sucking sound of everyone leaving in town had started to reverse and people started flowing back in.
Mhm.
And then a lot of the cultural things that we know and appreciate now really started to get rebuilt. If you think about the Virginia Highland neighborhood, there was a time when that was not a nice place.
Right.
But there was a time before that where it was a really nice place, and now it's back. So a lot of these neighborhoods have transitioned through different parts of their life cycle.
Yeah.
And Decatur's no different.
And that's an interesting point too, because you talk about the way it breathes in and out, right?
Mhm.
It expands and contracts. But, as this is happening, what neighborhoods are being developed? Well, Stone Mountain, Tucker,
Mhm.
Huntley Hills, Chamblee, those neighborhoods that are surrounding us, right?
Mhm.
And as that expansion takes people further out because of the automobile and the relying on the transportation, and then you have the Interstate Act. And then nowadays you have, starting in the 90s and definitely through the early 2000s, all the way up to the Great Recession, and a huge boom within the last, let's call it 10 years for the city of Atlanta, you have people moving back in. Do you feel like those neighborhoods that are the outliers, say the Stone Mountain and the Tucker, are now negatively impacted because of people wanting to be in a more walkable area like the city of Decatur?
I think to make a generalization about a lot of those would be hard because I think certain certain suburbs do feel like they may be going through kind of maybe a home valuation. Maybe values may be flatlining or falling, and other ones of those may be increasing and have a lot of investment or something. So I think it's hard to kind of generalize it. But what I'm noticing in a lot of the suburbs that I saw as a kid in the 80s being developed, where everything seemed real sterile and cookie cutter, now you're seeing a lot of interesting businesses, for example, that might match the vibe of the people that live there now. You might have certain types of restaurants that open or stores that provide different kinds of things that people would like. And as you see the population and demographic shift, I feel like we're seeing some of those suburbs actually gain some personality and
Mhm.
some real culture as opposed to just this expansion, build everything and put in, strip malls and big chain stores and all of that. I feel like now a lot of those suburbs are getting their own personality and culture. So I think also we saw a massive shift. We haven't even started really to understand the shift from the pandemic.
Right.
And the thing that tells me that I haven't really started to really understand how much the pandemic changed real estate and how we live is that the ridership on MARTA dropped in half during the pandemic. It was already low because you just can't do a whole lot on MARTA unless you're going from Decatur to downtown and back. It's just a really difficult system to use. But the ridership is at the same level as the pandemic level.
Mhm.
It hasn't come back up. That's a massive shift. People are commuting differently, living differently, and that's going to have an impact, on different communities.
Yeah, it certainly will. And I think one thing that you just said that I think is an important detail since we're talking about the city of Decatur is and other developments within other cities and suburban cities especially is if you take an example, we talked about Alpharetta on our last episode. And if you took Alpharetta, for instance, and you look at Avalon, a brand new development, you look at Halcyon, the other development up there, and then you compare it to downtown Decatur, I think authenticity is what I think about when I think of Decatur.
Mhm.
It's real. And
Yeah.
it's real because they've done a really good job of saying you've got 26 different historical architectural types you can build here.
Mhm.
And outside of that, you can't build anything different. So you've got a lot of this new blended, and that's commercial, speaking of,
Mhm.
uh, new built with the old, but it still feels old. It still feels like it's been there for a long time.
Mhm.
And so you do have that sense of authenticity that you maybe don't have in other areas like Alpharetta, even though Alpharetta has been there for a long time.
100
But
years from now, I'm curious what Avalon will look like. And
Mhm.
I'm assuming 100 years from now that the people that have the leases, the businesses that have leased space there, 100 years from now, we'll have gone through a couple of major business cycles of changing demographics of the people that live there or the changing habits of how people consume things. Yeah, and when those shifts happen, different businesses will come in and they will be really representative of the people that live there then. And I think we'll see that kind of shift similar to how Decatur happened, I believe.
Yeah. Well, okay. We're on the business side of this. Let's talk about downtown Decatur. Let's talk about dining, shopping, nightlife. Um, Bad news, folks. If you're in your 20s and you want to move to Decatur and go out, you're going to be
You better like live acoustic music.
live. Yeah, you better like live acoustic music, but you also should take your melatonin around like 10 p.m.
Yeah, they definitely roll up sidewalks a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be
There's a lot to do.
it's pretty shut down by midnight though. You're
Yeah.
not yeah.
Mhm.
People are in bed and if you're too loud, yeah, people live there. It's a very community feeling. So if you do like going out, maybe Midtown might be a better bet.
It's very safe. The Decatur police are no joke.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
It is very safe. I mean, obviously they have incidences like any neighborhood would, and crime rates are something we don't talk a ton about, but I'll say that they've got like more of the car break-ins than they would the aggravated assaults.
Yeah. But yeah, Decatur Police, it's a very good police department. I don't think anybody complains about their safety in Decatur. But they do kind of roll up things early, for nightlife. I think Midtown is a better place for those young people that want to really rage all night.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Your 5 favorite spots, and this can include coffee. I'll allow that. Your 5 favorite spots to eat in Decatur. Go.
Sushi Avenue, Dancing Goats Coffee.
That's my go-to.
Yeah, that's really good. I just Kimball House. Yeah, I like Kimball House a lot.
The best, number 1 in my eyes.
I mean, there is a what's the killer burger? Grindhouse. There is a Grindhouse there. It's not unique only to Decatur, but that's a pretty cool Grindhouse with the rooftop and everything. I think I have one more, right? Oh, and I got to say the McDonald's, because when that McDonald's moved to Decatur, this is what the 80s.
Chick-fil-A's more.
This is what the 80s were like in Decatur.
Oh my God.
That was the biggest thing to happen to Decatur in decades when that McDonald's moved in.
Yeah.
It was a big thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I've had so many great memories at that McDonald's just because it was the only thing there.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to give you the real from someone who actually dines
You actually go out and eat, yeah.
People love Iberian pig.
That's a great one.
Because it's tapas, it's whatever. Yeah. They do have a couple locations. They're Buckhead one as well. Kimball House is the best restaurant, hands down, in my eyes. It's
in the old train depot. It's got a lot of character.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking about craft cocktails.
Yeah, they make their own ice cubes with a chainsaw back, and
they have an oyster farm that they harvest oysters at, and
you can get a caviar service.
You can have caviar service. I mean, come on. And then the outdoor patio, just open air, shout out, those girls have turned that place into a beautiful, beautiful patio. And also they, for a long time, did the plants all around Decatur. So it really made it look nice. But that's just a really, really good restaurant. And then second up for that is Leon's Full Service.
I love Leon's.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of places I really like there.
Yeah.
Just didn't come to mind right off.
And then if you're looking for a quick snack, beer sort of thing, I'm going to Victory. Yeah, that's it's got your small sandwiches.
What's the pub there on the square
with Twain's?
Well, Twain's, of course. Yeah, and then there's the one that's right across from the courthouse. Brick Store.
Oh yeah, of course, Brick Store. Yeah. Brick Store actually was my next restaurant to mention. And then I also have to throw in dessert because butter and cream.
No, I don't know that one.
Close to my heart. Honorable mentions. I haven't dined there yet, but apparently Mother's Best fried chicken. Off the charts. And then Deer and Dove, people really love.
Oh, yeah, the Deer and Dove, because you can get a foie gras burger.
Yeah. And then you also have Cafe 246.
Very, very well known.
Yep. White Bull, another really solid restaurant.
You want to spend money on food?
They've got really good restaurants.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, if you do want to go out and you want to listen to acoustic music.
Eddie's Attic.
You've got to mention Eddie's Attic. It's
Eddie was my camp counselor when I was a kid.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
Eddie owned, yeah. Now, I think he sold the place.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. But it still is a great venue.
It really is. I've had the opportunity to play there once, and it's a listening room. So you buy by the table, and then you can buy general admission, but those are more seats up towards the back. It's really a good experience to buy a table. They're not terribly expensive, and you get a really intimate show there. So that's a really fun place to watch music. Okay, let's talk about festivals. They have, speaking of music, my favorite festival in all of Atlanta would be Oakhurst Porch Fest.
The one I think the one that started it all.
I think so too. Somebody told me the Virginia Highland one was first, but I don't believe that.
I don't know. I thought Oakhurst Porch Fest was kind of the
it's
the
out of
OG.
it's out of control. 200 plus shows on porches, and it's just a block party. They close down the streets. It's really fun. You also have Decatur Book Festival.
The Decatur Book Festival is a big deal.
It is.
Apparently there are a lot of people that read books there. And my mom used to be a lover of Decatur Book Festival. She was always there. If you wanted to find something to do with her, Book Festival will be top of the list.
I think you could stop there if you want to know if Decatur is right for you, is they have a book festival. So just mull on that. And if you know yourself, you will know if Decatur is right for you or not, right? You also have Decatur's Arts Festival. There's a bunch of festivals that happen. There's a beer festival, wine festival.
I mean, it's not really a festival, but have we talked about the fact that they're overhauling the downtown square?
We haven't, but there is a huge investment in that. We did talk about kind of the expansion of the bike lanes and the crosswalks, which is part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. They're building a new stage. It's been a long-standing gazebo.
Yeah, a gazebo has functioned, but I think having a more purposeful place for music to be performed is going to be good. Some more areas for kids, I think, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And that's all literally right on top of the entrance to MARTA.
It is, yes, and there's an entrance to MARTA in downtown, which is really beautiful thing as well.
Decatur has so many different neighborhoods, even though it's culturally feels like the same city. You know, living next to the YMCA in Westchester is going to feel very different. Living by the school in Winona Park, but it still feels very Decatur.
It does,
and so there are a lot of different styles and opportunities in the city of Decatur. There's a little bit of something for everybody, but it definitely leans way left.
It does.
And if you like community, if you want to be involved in neighborhood gardens and book clubs and whatever, you know, it would be a great place for you. There's I think something that, you know, really may not be obvious from what we're saying is there's a ton of history in Decatur. You know, that courthouse for one, the Decatur Cemetery. It's the first place I ever saw gravestones with birth dates in the 1700s.
Beautiful.
It's a really historic place.
It's a beautiful place to walk to.
Yeah, there's so much history. I just, you know, I can't say enough good things about Decatur. It's not cheap.
Nope.
And if you don't like paying taxes, don't move there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we didn't even talk about price points, but I'll quickly throw that in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
we should mention what it would cost. So starter home condo, how cheap can you get into this?
You can get in for $250, right? But you're going to be living in an older condo that would probably be in downtown Decatur. And that would probably be the ones right above the
and that's going to be a 1-bedroom or a studio.
Yeah. 1 bedroom. 2 bedrooms, you're going to be it's going to be similar to what Midtown's pricing would be for condos. Newer buildings, you'd be in the 3s and 4s. Townhouses,
what about a moderately renovated bungalow, like a 3-bed, 2-bath, not over the top, not fixer upper, like
$900?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
It's pretty penny.
Yeah. I mean, if it's renovated, that's probably a good price. So, I mean, you're talking about if you wanted, let's say if you wanted in Mac District, or Mac District's going to be hard, but let's talk about Oakhurst. You probably get in Oakhurst and you wanted that 4-bedroom, historic, craftsman, arts and crafts style house, you're probably going to be 1.5 to 2.
Wow. That's an expensive place to live, especially if you've got almost 2% tax rate on your real estate investment.
Yeah, you're going to be paying 30.
Yeah, it really becomes a question of how much private school tuition am I offsetting here?
Yeah. Well, I think that's where you kind of know when you're buying into City of Decatur, you might as well be sending your kids to private school. It is a science-based high school. It's very much like that. It's a magnet school or whatever they call it. So yes, very good schools, and you do pay for it. You have to think that you're paying for a lifestyle. You know, to close this out, I'll say you're paying to live in a sustainable, focused, progressive area that feels right. It feels like, you know, if that fits your bill, like we said, if a book festival sounds fun to you, then you're probably
in the right spot.
Yeah. And probably if you were looking at demographics, I would imagine Decatur might have a higher doctrine per capita than most areas.
That's a good point. I think if you're interested in Decatur, it's a really welcoming place. I'll go check it out, hang out for an afternoon, or give us a shout. We'd love to give you some ideas on what to do. But thanks for listening to All Things Local. I'm Jeffy, and my host, Mincey.
Yeah. Adam Mincey here, Jeff Goddard. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We do work in real estate, and we work and have lived in Decatur, you all of your life, me currently. And so if you have any questions on the area, we'd love to help you. So just feel free to give us a shout.
Thank you. Talk soon.